Wife's horrible boss showed up at our house party, insulted everything about our home, and when he accused her of sleeping her way to the top, I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him out. This situation happened in the summer, but it got brought back up again recently, so I wanted to have unbiased opinions to see if I crossed the line. There are 3 important points I want to state for background purposes before I continue. 1. I, 30M, have my own business. I've also been very fortunate that it's doing amazing, and I'm very thankful and blessed it's growing. 2. My wife, 28F, works in a corporate job at a well-known company, which was also her first job out of college, and was recently promoted to director. She has people that report to her, and she reports directly to the senior director. 3. My wife and I bought land and had a custom-made forever home built summer of 2023. We were involved in the whole process from designing the house to what furniture we would get. The whole process from the house being built to having it fully furnished took a little over a year. We're extremely proud of how it turned out. We love to host gatherings, so once the house was done, we threw multiple of them throughout the year. My wife wanted to have a barbecue/pool party in the summer and wanted to invite her coworkers. Because she was inviting a lot of them, I think around 50, we decided to cater food and outdoor activities like a bouncy castle, since some of them would bring their families. Overall, a lot of planning and thought went into this, but my wife was happy doing it. A couple days before the party, she gave some background on some coworkers I've never met. She got to a person named Dick, fake but suitable name, and told me she was her old boss, director of a different department, and always treated her like crap. My wife was moving up the corporate ladder pretty quickly, and he wasn't a big fan of it for some reason. She started out in his department but eventually ended up being a director and becoming his equal in terms of position. I asked her why she's inviting someone like that, and she said she doesn't want him to feel left out and make their work relationship even worse. I guess she wanted to try and work it out outside of company hours to see if anything changes. But regardless, she asked me to be on my best behavior around him, even if he makes any snide remarks, and she'll handle it. I'm already overprotective of my wife because she's extremely nice and can be a punching bag for some people sometimes, but I told her I'd try my best. On the day of the party, everything was going smooth. Everybody was having a good time by the pool, backyard games, bouncy castle, etc. Dick came around 30 minutes late, but I was the one to greet him at the door while my wife was busy with the guests. I introduced myself to him and ushered him to where the guests were. He was actually nice to talk to while we were talking, but his whole demeanor changed when my wife walked over. It was literally like a switch flipped. I ignored it, but my wife offered the guests who came late a tour of the house. While we were giving the tour, he kept saying something negative about every room we stopped at. For example, we showed the living room and he said the ceilings are too high. Why did you guys do that? Kind of pointless to have. Another example, we got the guest/pool house in the backyard. He said, why did you guys build a guest house? Your house is big enough. It's like you want to show off. He kept making comments like that and made the other guests feel so uncomfortable. I just kept my mouth shut at my wife's request, and she would just awkwardly laugh and move the tour along. After the tour was done, we led them to the backyard where everyone else was. Everyone except Dick stayed, and he started talking to us. He was asking us questions like how much was the house? Who paid for most of it? Pretty invasive questions in my opinion. I told him that's information I'm not comfortable sharing, so we moved on. A little bit later, we were eating and talking with other guests. We got into the topic of the house. Someone mentioned they loved the backyard layout and asked who we had designed it. My wife answered saying that we designed everything ourselves. While she was talking, Dick interrupted and said in a very sarcastic tone, "Well, be careful not to ask them how much it was. Apparently it's private information that only the elite share with each other." There was an awkward silence. I honestly had enough, because at this point, he's just trying to embarrass her for no reason. I responded, "Is there a problem here? Ever since you've came here, you've been rude." He just scoffed and said it just something he wanted to know, and then he kept silent. I pressed him and asked why he would need to know. He didn't say anything and just stared. I told him next time when people are talking, you don't need to involve yourself. When I said that, then he started going on a rant. I don't know who you think you're talking to like that, but I thought it was odd and wanted to know how wife was able to afford this house on her salary. There's no way she makes enough for this house. Let me guess, you paid for most of it. I cut him off mid-rant and said, "I can talk to you however I want. I don't work for you and neither does wife. This is also my wife and I's house, and you don't get to disrespect us here. I don't know what issues you have with my wife, but it ends here." At this point, and I'm not proud of this, I started getting into his face and continued saying, "Just because you're jealous of my wife and how she progressed in her career while you stayed at the same position for however long doesn't give you the right to be an asshole. You can get the fuck off my property before I have to force you." He looked dumbfounded because I guess he didn't expect me to get this close. He responded by saying something along the lines of that my wife slept her way to her position and she slept her way to an easy life where she doesn't have to pay for anything, and we're just flaunting our money in people's faces. That was my breaking point, so I grabbed him by his collar and started dragging/pushing him out of the house. When I came back, my wife's close co-workers were consoling her and the others decided it was time to go. When everyone eventually left, my wife told me I didn't have to defend her like that. She's more than capable of taking care of herself. She mentioned that because of my outburst, it's going to make everything awkward at work for her now. I told her I know I shouldn't have done what I did, but he was crossing the line. There's only so much I can take. Overall, she's upset that I didn't listen to the one request she had for me, that I let one person ruin the party, and concerned there will be issues at work. Not to mention she's worried I'd get arrested for assault. I told her there's nothing to worry about because she did nothing wrong. She just got up and walked away saying that I don't understand corporate culture. So, Ida in this situation. Update, February 19, 2025. Not sure how to update properly, so I left a comment and did a new post as well. Sorry if that's overkill. Also, sorry for the rambling on my post lol. I reread my post and agree with you guys, I did add some useless info. I'm a better speaker than writer lol. Also, my wife and I read all the comments and we actually enjoyed reading them. Even though some were kind of mean, she came to the realization that she needed to be more assertive and not be spineless as some people so generously called her. As I mentioned before, this happened in the summer. The day afterwards everything happened, we both apologized to each other and asked her to give me a full rundown of Dick from when she used to be in his department because there's no way someone has that much hatred for someone without reason. So he did try to make advances on her when she first joined, but not only her, but a bunch of other female co-workers, some of who were at the party. She shot him down multiple times and went to HR with her co-workers to file complaints and Dick's behavior did stop. However, he was now having her manager giving a ton of work to do. She was working long hours, but it ended up working in her favor because the other department's manager noticed her workload and her ability to finish it without mistakes and pretty much poached her to join her team. So from then till she got promoted to director, about 6 years, she had very few interactions with him. It's only when she got promoted to director, she was forced to interact. My wife, Dick, and the senior director Tim, would have meetings every morning. She said he never really acted badly towards her, but he would always downplay any suggestions she had or outright ignore it. She thought if she invited him to the party, maybe that would change his behavior and bury the hatchet. She realizes that it was really stupid to assume that would happen. My wife did tell me that when she saw everyone at work, they told her not to worry and a bunch of them were happy someone finally did something to him. Some were hoping for more but happy regardless. She said that made her feel better because she thought they would see her in a bad light, which I don't know why, but my wife is an overthinker. She wrote a complaint to HR for harassment against Dick and he did the same thing, but against me. HR didn't do anything for either of them. She got an email saying because this happened off of company property and this was not a company-sponsored event, no action needs to be taken by the company and any disputes that happen needs to be taken care of by the individual. She was worried that Dick would sue or call the cops, but nothing happened in a month, so we assumed he just gave up on it. During the meetings, Dick would just stay quiet after my wife spoke as opposed to giving condescending remarks like he usually did. I haven't seen or spoken to Dick since the party, but my wife asked me to come to the company Christmas party where I saw Dick, but he ignored us. I met Tim and when my wife introduced me, he said something along the lines of, "Thanks for coming. Please don't drag me across the room. I'm very nice to your wife." My wife and I burst out laughing and I realized Dick had become the butt of the jokes. Apparently, people at work started doing a collar-grabbing motion behind Dick's back. The reason it got brought up again recently was because my wife told me a couple days ago that he put his 2 weeks in. I joked we should throw a party, but she felt bad because she feels like he quit because of her. I told her that she didn't do anything wrong and anything that happened to Dick after the party was on him. Nothing would have happened if he just kept his mouth shut. She understands, but she still feels bad. My wife is a very empathetic person, even to people who don't deserve it. So might not be the ending some of you were hoping for, but it worked out for us. We still joke around about being dragged across the room here and there, but overall, everything ended the best way for us. Next story, found out my wife's male best friend was actually her secret ex-FWB, so I kicked her out, got DNA tests for our kids, and filed for divorce. Now it turns out my sister already knew the truth. 1 month ago, I, 43M, found out that my wife's, 41F, male best friend, 40M, was actually her former FWB, and that has enraged me to no end. Not just because they had that kind of past, but because she kept it a secret from me for all these years. To make matters worse, my sister, 40F, who is also my wife's best friend, knew about it and never told me. When we started dating 18 years ago, we agreed to cut all ties with our exes. Now I've learned that she's been lying to me about that for years. After finding out last month, I spoke to a lawyer and told my wife we were getting a divorce. Nothing she says or does now will change that. I also took a DNA test for my daughter, 16F, and twin boys, 12M, and have gone no contact with my sister. Some might say I'm taking things too far, especially with the DNA test, but there's a reason for it. Her FWB and I look strikingly similar. We're both 6 feet tall, have blonde hair, and blue eyes. Until now, I never questioned whether my kids were mine, but after learning about her past with him, I can't help but feel paranoid. On top of that, her FWB never got married because he claimed to have a free soul. It makes me feel like she just settled for me, and if he had ever decided he wanted marriage, she would have left me in an instant. The only silver lining in all of this is that the house we live in is in my name. I inherited it from my grandpa before we got married. For now, I've kicked my wife out of the house and taken her to her parents' place, where I told them exactly why we're getting divorced. I also told my kids because I believe they're old enough to know the truth. Since then, my wife has been calling me constantly, crying and swearing that they were just friends, but I don't believe her. I made it clear that even if the DNA test confirms all 3 kids are mine, I will still go through with the divorce. From what I hear from my brother-in-law, who lives near her parents, she's a complete wreck and barely eats anything. My sister has also tried to reach out to me through her husband, but I told them I don't consider her my sister anymore after wasting 18 years of my life. Honestly, if the DNA test comes back negative, I don't know what I would do. I love my kids more than anything in this world, and finding out that even one of them isn't mine would break me more than anything else. Update 1, March 26, 2025. First, I want to make some things clear. I didn't kick her out of the house like some crazy person. I asked for space, and she accepted. I then drove her to her parents' place, which is a little over an hour away by car. The idea of cutting ties with exes was hers. When she said exes, she meant people like my childhood friend, who I only dated for a month in high school, but somehow not her FWB, with whom she had a sexual relationship for who knows how long. Yes, cutting him off would have probably cost her half of her friend group, but the same thing happened to me when I cut ties with my childhood friend because of her boundaries. If she didn't want to lose friends over this, she shouldn't have been the one to suggest cutting ties with exes then. I explained the reason for our separation to our children. She lied about something important, and I was upset. I told them that I wanted us to take some time apart for now. The house isn't about money. It's about the sentimental value. It holds memories of my grandparents and childhood, and it's where I've made so many memories with my kids. That's why I consulted with a lawyer about the house first. I would still need to pay at least $100,000 to my wife for the house, but I'm okay with that. I asked her about her relationship with that guy 2 or 3 times early in our relationship. She always assured me that they were just friends, but I felt insecure and asked my sister, who knew them for 4 or 5 years. She told me their relationship was like that of a brother and sister, so I chose to believe her big mistake. The FWB was never someone who would settle down and have a family. For as long as I've known him, he's always been traveling, doing dangerous things, and chasing thrills. That's why I feel like I was the safe choice for her. The fact that she kept their relationship a secret from me for 18 years only makes me think I'm right. The results of the DNA test don't matter, they will always be my children. Even if the results come back positive, I still want to proceed with the divorce. However, I should at least try 3 to 6 months of couples therapy, if not for myself, then at least for the kids. About the test results, I'll wait for my best friend before looking at the results so I have someone for support. I'll post a small update in the comments once I look at them. Edit, like some people have advised, I should probably have her take a polygraph test to see if she's lying, and I will do that. Small update, so yeah, I don't really know how to start this, but my kids are mine by blood and soul. I can't even begin to describe the mix of happiness, sadness, and guilt I feel right now. But I wanted to give you all an update since you've helped keep my mind occupied and not let my thoughts spiral down into a dark place, so thank you all. So, about an hour and a half ago, my best friend, who I've known for as long as I can remember, drove nearly 3 hours to be with me and help me through this. After he arrived, we had a beer or two, and I told him everything. He just listened, letting me get it all out, and reassured me that he'd be there for me no matter what. After about 10 minutes, I finally gathered the courage to look at the test results and completely broke down. I collapsed into a crying mess. When I finally calmed down, we started talking about what I should do next. Should I try to save my marriage for the sake of the kids? Would that even be the right thing to do? That's when my friend shared something from his own past. When he was young, one of his parents cheated, but they still stayed together for the kids. And he told me, without hesitation, that it was the worst thing they could have done. He spent years wishing they had just divorced instead of forcing everyone to live in that kind of broken relationship. His words, along with some of the private messages I've received, really hit me. So, I've decided not to try to save the marriage. I will go forward with the divorce. But I also want to make sure that, even after it's over, we can still work together for the best interests of our children. That's why I'll be going to both individual and couples therapy so that we can learn how to co-parent in the healthiest way possible. I also am looking for a good therapist for my 3 children so that they can begin to heal as soon as possible. Comments where Op has replied, Commenter 1, wow, your sister lied to you to protect your wife's cheating? That's cold. Does your sister hate you or something? Oop, I always thought our sibling relationship was good. I even walked her down the aisle. Commenter 2, did she try to argue that he didn't count as an ex even though she had sex with him? She's likely going to argue that she isn't the person now that she was back then, but you need to find out what kind of person she was back then and if you would have dated and married her if you knew about it. If not, then her lies were essentially about deceiving you into a relationship with her, which doesn't show a lot of respect for you. Oop, she said something along those lines that she didn't want to lose a friend group because of this and that it was just meaningless sex they had a few times. She also claimed she hadn't met him alone since we made it official. If she hadn't made us cut off all our exes, I would have understood her not wanting to ruin a friend group. But she was fine with destroying my friend group with her boundaries, just not hers. Update 2, March 31, 2025. Hello, friends. I wanted to post one final update on what's been happening after I talked with my wife when she got back from her parents'. As you can see from the title, I've made up my mind to give her a second chance after going through her current phone and her old phone from about 12 years ago. We had a long conversation where I asked her why she made me cut off my exes while she still kept her former FWB. Turns out, her first long-term boyfriend of 3 years had cheated on her with a mutual friend, which made her deeply insecure about her future partners having female friends, especially exes. From the time we started dating until I made our relationship official after about 5 or 6 months, she was struggling with those insecurities. When I asked her to make our relationship official and get engaged, she had a conversation with my sister, who suggested that we both cut off our exes. My wife agreed, but my sister convinced her that the FWB didn't count as an ex because they had only slept together twice during a trip to Europe with some friends. Later, my wife regretted lying to me and wanted to tell me about her past with him, but my sister stopped her. She told my wife that bringing it up would only cause unnecessary stress and could even put her pregnancy at risk. Because of that, my wife decided not to tell me but tried to distance herself from him instead. Eventually, she planned to cut him off completely without me ever knowing. However, my sister had other plans. She had a crush on the FWB's close friend and really liked that friend group. She knew that if my wife distanced herself, it would inevitably break up the group, so she pressured my wife into going to meetups where the FWB would be, sometimes lying to her about who would be there. Another possible reason my sister did this was that she herself wanted to keep seeing her own FWB while being in a relationship and didn't want to feel guilty about it. That's the only explanation I can think of. I also asked my wife if she would take a polygraph test to prove she never cheated on me, and she agreed immediately without a second of hesitation. So we're going to try to save this marriage, starting with marriage counseling and other steps to rebuild trust. But first, she has to completely cut off that friend group and block my sister from everything. And to address some of the private messages I've been getting, no, I'm not an abuser, nor have I financially abused my wife. She has been working since our twin boys turned 2, and my mother moved in with us to help care for them while we both worked. And no, I'm not just looking for an excuse to leave this marriage because of some midlife crisis. I love my wife and my children, and not being away from them for weeks or months would be heartbreaking.